Next question is microphone number 2. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you, Chairman. I have Rita Mazalevskis from Perth.
Hello, Board. Just before I ask my question, I have one business experience to share and just a general query. In my local branch in Fremantle a couple of weeks ago, there was a young gentleman in front of me and he had a bag, and I think he must have been depositing business funds. And the new branch, well, the branches now just have a counter with a little plastic Perspex square. And the lady was counting the money and she kept telling him he was 10 cents short. And she kept looking at the screen and the money and going like this with the money and talking to the gentleman. And the gentleman was talking to her with his sign language. And she wouldn't acknowledge it. So he resorted to calling his manager and showing his screen, and I had to pipe up and tell her the poor man is deaf. And so then she just stood there and she goes, well, I guess I should have realised that, shouldn't I? So I just wanted to share that because it was pretty embarrassing and disgraceful.
Thank you, Rita. Look, it's disappointing whenever we hear of standards that are below what we want, but thank you for the feedback and we'll make sure it's fed back.
Thank you. Could you please tell us if the bank has any intention of charging its customers for accessing its own money?
You think, are we planning to do a CBA?
Yes. Whilst
No.
you don't mention customers, yes.
I can tell you we are not planning to introduce a fee in the form that CBA proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so my question. On the 13th of November, ABC reported that Australia's Treasurer says the government is close to signing a deal with the ANZ Bank to keep all of its Pacific branches open. ANZ has the largest Pacific presence out of all the Australian banks, but like many others, it has been reducing its footprint in the region, closing 10 branches over the last 5 years. It's part of a larger trend that has seen the region lose around 80% of so-called corresponding banks over the last decade. Pacific leaders have raised it as an important issue, and earlier this year, the Australian Treasurer Jim Chalmers told the Pacific Banking Forum his government would support regional banking systems. So what I'd like to know is, why are political reasons okay to keep branches open in the Pacific and make agreements and not require any further reducing of your footprint? Yet vulnerable customers in Australia don't matter, with many critical branches being closed, which directly impacts vulnerable customers who could be hundreds of miles away from banks, don't have internet, could have disabilities, the list goes on and on.
Thanks, Rita. And I'll let Shane comment in a moment because he's been directly involved in talking with the government on the Pacific. But I just want to reiterate our commitment, our 3-year commitment to not close regional branches. And can I also say, we are extremely sensitive to the importance of branches, but the challenge for us and the industry, and ultimately for the community, is the viability of them when we've seen transactions in branches drop by 50% over the last 4 to 5 years, and when people are just not using them in the way they used to historically. But do you want to talk about the Pacific deal?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rita, for the question. Look, the Pacific is an important part of our network. I mean, shareholders may not know, but while we started in Australia and then soon followed in New Zealand, the third country in our network was Fiji in 1880. And the fourth country was Papua New Guinea in 1910. So we've been in the Pacific a long time. They're very much part of the family. The reasons that we have been talking to the government about the banking president are not political. It's got nothing to do with politics. It's got to do with the practicality in a modern world, in a world where regulation is much more complicated than it used to be. How can we continue to serve people in the Pacific, just as we serve people here in Australia, effectively, but also efficiently? And so what we did is we entered into discussions with the government, essentially trying to find a way to do that, and they've been nothing but supportive. This is not a financial support. I just want to, we're not getting a subsidy or anything like that from the government. It's about how we can work together with the Australian government and the governments of the Pacific to ensure that the people of the Pacific get these services they require. I mean, I was just literally there a couple of weeks ago, meeting both with the Prime Minister in Fiji and the Prime Minister in Samoa to ensure that we continue to operate there. These businesses, I want to reassure shareholders, our businesses in the Pacific are good businesses. They generate a decent and fair return for the risks we take there, but we just needed a little bit of help to make sure that we could continue the service, just like we want to continue the services in regional Australia or regional New Zealand or anywhere else that we operate.
Okay, thank you, Rita.